Oh God.
I just sweat the mic off my chest here. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Form Check Friday. We are back here in my office, checking some technique. It's way too hot. I need to buy an air conditioner. I'm sweaty and dying. Let's get right down to it here. So our first video comes from Glenn Gunderson. Now Glenn is a pretty big guy. So Glenn's doing some deadlifts in one video and some squats in another. The first video here we're gonna show is some deadlifts. So Glenn's pulling 260 here, I believe just for a single, might be a double. And it looks like, you know, his back position could be better, but I think as a big guy, I think it's gonna be really hard to get much better of a back position than that. So the thing that I want to point out and be conscious of is there's a little bit of a tendency right before lockout for you to ramp it a little bit to kind of push your knees under the bar and lock it out that way. You got to be careful with that because in a competition you could be called for hitching. And the other thing is as you lock your hips, your knees actually come unlocked. So again, we could run into trouble potentially not getting the lift passed in competition due to the fact that the knees come unlocked as you lock out. So that's what I would watch for on that one. And then if we take a look at Glenn's squat here, it actually looks quite good. The one thing I might point out on your squat here, Glenn, you look like you're built to squat and your squat is quite good. The only thing we're seeing a little bit of an issue with is right out of the very bottom, we're getting a little bit pitched forward in that upper back. So I think if you work on really focusing and being mindful of your upper back, especially right when you hit the bottom position of your squat, I think that's gonna go a long ways to to preventing you from getting pitched forward quite as much out of the hole. Our next form check comes to us from a guy named Denzel. And it looks like, honestly, your biggest issue is just not taking the time to set your anything properly, really. It looks like we could be using the bar a lot better to pull more tension into the back before you start the lift. As a result of not setting enough tension, the hips are coming up. We're ending up with a little bit of a round back as we go through, especially moving forward through the sets. And then we fail the last rep there, actually. So big thing is going to be making sure that you're taking the time to set your back a little bit better. It looks like you're able to achieve a good position, so let's work on making sure that's more consistent throughout sets and throughout reps in a given set. So let's work really hard on trying to use the lats. So what I try to tell people is as you drop your hips, and I think that's what most people think of it as, is just dropping the hips. But what I want you to think about it as is actually grabbing the bar and using your lats to pull your hips down. With a light weight, you know, whatever your first warm-up would be, the bar should almost float. You should almost find a point where there's so much tension on the bar and so much tension through your entire posterior chain that the bar is wanting to float as you start your deadlift. So let's try to find that position and not worry as much about just kind of dumping the butt down. Let's find tension, that's much more important. Our next video comes from a guy named Ian Yo. Ian's from Singapore. Thanks for tuning in from Singapore, man. It's always really cool when we get these videos from all over the world. Ian sent in some bench and some squats, and the squats look really good, so I'm not gonna bother talking about them. Ian, for the squats, just keep doing what you're doing, man. With the bench, it looks like it's probably a product of an awkward rack height more than anything. But as you unrack the bar, you're having to protract or move your shoulder blades forward, which is gonna pull you out of an ideal position to be benching from. So what I want you to try to work on and try to do is to maybe get a little bit more from your handoff guy, but try to really keep those shoulder blades pulled back a little harder and a little tighter. I think that's gonna really go a long ways to minimizing your range of motion, keeping your shoulders in a position where they're less likely to be impinged and all kinds of good things like that. So more stable base of support as well. But yeah, let's work really hard on trying to keep those shoulders back and not pop them out as you unrack the bar there. Like I said, with the squats, everything looks really good. So our next one comes from a guy named Ada. Now Ada's from Turkey, and he's actually sent in 3 different videos over the course of, from sending his original one he sent another one about a week or two later. And then he sent another one just recently when I replied to him and told him I was going to put him in the video. So Ada, his first sumo deadlift here, he said he just transitioned to sumo deadlifting. He was having some troubles with it and wanted us to take a look at it. And you guys will notice that we're really not getting into any kind of good back position. We're pretty rounded out throughout the whole thing. Not really, you know, pulling the upper back tight or any of that stuff that I was just talking about with Denzel there. So what he did was he actually took it upon himself to watch some videos, to learn a little bit more, to figure some things out. And oh, these are his squats. Your squats are good, by the way, man. I wouldn't change much there. He sent another deadlift video in, and this time he lowered the weight. He took his time, he set his back, and honestly, everything looks fantastic. Looks really, really good. So I wanted to use this as a point to sort of illustrate what we're looking for when I say to flatten your back, or when I say, you know, pull tension into the bar, and those kinds of things. The next thing Ada did when I responded to him and told him that he was going to be in the video was he said, I think one of the main differences between the first one and the second one, first one being the sort of janky looking one, second one being really, really good looking, is he said there's a huge discrepancy in the amount of weight that's on the bar. So if you look at his second video there, everything looks really good, but there's not a lot of weight on the bar. He says when he gets to more up into working weights, he still sees some of those same issues. So let's take a look at the third video that he submitted here. And this actually shows him with a little bit more weight on the bar and having to struggle to keep his back position. So Ada, I think you're going in the right direction for sure. I think you should work to maintain that technique that we're seeing, and honestly it looks really good even on the third video with the heavier weight. It looks like you're getting into a good position. Yes, you're struggling to maintain it, but I want you to keep working on that and keep making more of your deadlifts look more like that second one, because I know you can get into a good position, you can put everything in the right spot. It just looks like on these third ones here, it looks like you're starting a little bit out in front of the bar. So get those shoulder blades down a little bit and that should go a long ways, but the mechanics and the basic movement looks way, way, way better, much improved, even into that third one where we're seeing a little bit more breakdown. I think that's just a product of it being heavy and a product of sumo being new to you. So just keep practicing, man. And I think if you can enact those cues from the second one in the third one a little bit more, or sort of bring those into how you're lifting heavier weights, it's gonna go a long ways. So I would also maybe, you know, do a little bit of a slower progression with some of that stuff. So his next submission comes from a guy named David. I don't think it's him in the video because he talks about the athlete in third person. And I was actually reffing this meet. This was at, I think it's, I can't remember the name of the gym anymore. It used to be Strive. Anyways, so in this video, third deadlift attempt in competition, and just, you know, barely misses it at lockout. And what's happening here is we're just a little bit rushed off the floor. We're losing that nice back position and we're not pulling into enough tension again. I know, you know, I keep repeating myself a lot in this series, but I think illustrating it in different ways can sometimes be helpful for you guys. So again, I think maybe just jacked up about the competition. Looks like it might have been his first 500-pound pull. It was 506. So just kind of didn't set into the bar quite enough. Didn't get that last little bit of extension. You can see right as he pulls, he gets into a good position. Right as he pulls, hips come up a little bit, and that's when we start seeing some of that shear acting through the back, which causes it to round out a little bit. If we can stay a little bit more extended, we're gonna get a lot more compressive force, which is gonna go down into the hips and those strong moving muscles, as opposed to pulling us out of position. So again, just pulling the back into a little bit of a tighter position. Keeping those hips where he started them would have been very beneficial, because as they crept up, like I said, that kind of wrecked things. But yeah, definitely a strong athlete, lots of potential there. So just a couple of cues that, you know, and that's the other thing, is not everything's gonna stay perfect when you go for your third attempt. You're not always going to see perfect technique when you're trying something you've never done before and it's a maximal lift. It just becomes hard to maintain technique sometimes. And until you have years of experience and have kind of mastered your technique, will you be able to maintain it through a third attempt? It can be tough. So this next one comes from Christian. Christian's doing some sumo deadlifts here, And I think we're just lacking a little bit of tension into the bar again, pulling the slack out of the bar. So again, that idea of using the lats to pull the back flat and pull the hips into position. He looks like he's doing a good job of sort of setting himself back behind the bar, but looks like it could be a little bit further. No, actually that one looked really good. Basically just getting better at being patient off the floor, maintaining the position that he's starting in. So again, this kind of bleeds into that last one a little bit, but making sure that you're maintaining the position you started in. Something that can be really, really valuable for that can be incorporating some pause deadlifts. And you can use pause deadlifts a number of different ways. You can use them light to sort of harness your technique, or you can use them to get strong through that bottom range of motion and make sure that with heavy weights you're not gonna have your hips shoot up. So you can even do singles, or you know, work in some heavy volume with those, but those will go a long ways for you, Christian. So our last video here comes from a guy named Gong. He wants us to look at a sumo deadlift, and it looks like it's just a matter of not achieving ideal position or tension off the floor. So if you watch Gong's pull, he really snaps his hips down quickly and then goes. And what I would want to see more of, Gong, is I'd want to see more of getting into position, maintaining the position, and trying to use the position that you create instead of just getting there and then just pulling on the bar. A really useful exercise that I've used with some of my clients and some other people remotely quite well. I actually heard about for the first time in Tim Thibodeau's video. I don't know if any of you guys follow him. If you don't, go check it out. We're gonna put a link to the video I'm talking about in the description. And he talks about essentially the best warm-up that he's found for sumo deadlifts is just to pull yourself into position a bunch, as if you were going to deadlift, but then don't deadlift. You just pull in as a stretch, find tension, and then release. Pull in, stretch, find tension, release kind of thing. And I think this can be really, really useful for beginners in finding their position. So go check that out, Gong. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're gonna be restocking our shirts and coming out with women's racerbacks, tanks, men's tanks, and 3/4 lengths, all within about a week or so. We'll give you guys more heads up on that as it unfolds. We'll see you next Friday.